Hi, we back. It's Real Talk. Jeff here. Brad, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. Long day of work. Some weird speculation about the Steelers. Big trades in the NFL. Obviously everyone hears about Carson Wentz. NBA's in full swing. Baseball just got started, and NHL's going. Soccer's going. Sports world's buzzing.
Sports world is a bloom. Buzzing
Hmm.
for sure. Today we actually we'd only talked that we were going to do some NBA stuff, but um, there's this thing that always happens in the sports world. Um, Sports happen, and a trade
Damn.
was made. Carson Wentz is traded. Let's get right into it. So Carson Wentz traded. The Eagles have given Carson Wentz to the Indianapolis Colts in exchange for a third-round pick, which I believe is this year, and a second-round pick that is next year. Am I getting that
Yep,
right?
it's next year. Could turn into a first.
And it could turn into
It
a first.
probably will. For those of you
So
listening, it
that's so
probably
that's
will.
yeah. He's got to play 75% of the snaps, and as long as he's their starting quarterback, that will happen. And as long as he's not hurt, that will happen. So there's a
The
good
other,
chance that this is a first-round pick next
yeah,
year and a third this year.
right. Even
So
still, third and first.
yeah, so I guess my first reaction when I saw the trade is I was wrong. Matthew Stafford did not reset the market. Do you
See,
agree or disagree?
I disagree
Okay.
because for me, my first reaction, actually, someone told it to me at work before I got the actual alert on my phone, and I was like, finally, like about
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
We
Well,
all
of
knew
course,
since
we knew he was
like,
going. It
yeah,
was almost decided he was going to the Colts, but when and for
right,
what?
correct.
Yeah.
And again, I was not surprised that it was going to the Colts. If a lot of you have been following the story, it was basically like the Bears wanted him badly, but they were not willing to trade for Carson Wentz if he did not want to be there, which he made it. He used everything he could to say, "Get me to the Colts."
Yeah.
So the Colts trade for him. Now, I guess there's two layers to your question here. The first one, I didn't think Matt Stafford would reset the market. I think I was on the podcast saying Jared Goff's contract was so enormous that to take that, and the Rams were always big spenders anyway, and there was four people in the mix, and everyone knew Stafford was going. But to get him as cheap as they did, I didn't think like that was a little shocking. Like I thought maybe like okay, maybe not a starting quarterback.
Let me stop you. Who got who as cheap as they did?
I was surprised that the Colts got Carson Wentz
Okay.
first they
I
did.
agree with you. Yes, I'm
Um,
agreeing.
I don't. I mean Carson Wentz. I've always been a big fan of Carson Wentz's. I've never been one to talk down on him. And honestly, the Eagles were so bad and in such shambles all year. We pretty much dismissed them on the podcast. It was like their whole team's in shambles, coaching staff's a mess, and we kind of never really talked about the Eagles. Also, it's exciting for me because I think everyone knows I'm a little bit of a closet Colts fan. I've always loved the Colts outside of the Steelers as my second favorite team. Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, and now Carson Wentz. I think it's very exciting. But yeah, a third this round. You don't even really care about that getting a franchise quarterback, and then pretty much a first next year. I thought they would have to pay more for Carson Wentz.
I did as well. They truly paid for 2020 Carson Wentz. And
Yes.
and if that's the case, I think that the Colts made out with a pretty good bargain. Even if they get 2020 Carson Wentz. I mean, even if they get the discombobulated turnover machine, I don't think that's what they're getting. But I mean, today a franchise quarterback pretty much demands minimum. People are trading 2 first-round picks for players that have never taken a snap in an NFL game. So, like, I don't know. I just assumed the market would be more.
I think.
And I think the Colts really believe they can get 2017 Carson Wentz prior to his ACL injury.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not even going to get too much in the Eagles. I just think the trade works out for both teams, except the Eagles, man. Holy crap. I mean, you let go of your Super Bowl MVP because you believed in Carson Wentz. Okay? And then you take the largest cap hit in NFL history to I'm gonna say give him away. Because you give away a franchise QB, for a rookie quarterback that took. I mean, what did he play? 2.5 games, 3 games,
It
three and a
was
half games.
something late, and then when he was picking up momentum as the team started, they pulled him in a game
Yeah, it's just
spot.
the whole thing is a mess.
Yeah. Um, I see you. I mean, pointing out a lot of the things in the Eagles in the past and where they're going. I guess for me, I've accepted the fact that the Eagles are in shambles. No one knows what's going on with the Eagles.
Yeah,
And I look more at the positive side, and that's for the Colts.
yeah. So let's talk about the Colts.
Yeah, like so you've got Jonathan Taylor ran for a little over 1,000 yards. I think he ended up being the third leading rusher in the NFL at
And
1,169.
Hines was
The
great too.
Yep, the Eagles set an NFL record starting 15 different offensive line combinations last year. The Colts have the seventh ranked offensive line. He's getting a night and day difference on the offensive line. Everyone knows about Frank Reich, the head coach, who was his offensive coordinator during his MVP season. I say MVP season. I know he didn't win it, but we all know it was Carson Wentz's till the knee happened. Um, but another interesting hire is they're bringing in Press Taylor, who may not be super important to the staff in terms of what he will actually do for the entire team, but he's been on the Eagles coaching staff since 2016 as quarterback coach, assistant, pass game coordinator. He's actually Zach Taylor's brother. Little fun fact, Bengals head coach. But him and Frank Reich have worked well with Carson Wentz, and I think what a lot of people overlook is, Philadelphia. I think it's not crazy to say that they're very outspoken and aggressive towards all of their top athletes. That's just kind of how Philadelphia is, especially in football. So Philip Rivers comes from South Dakota and absolutely lights it up. I mean, he was just playing fantastic and then got injured. As soon as he gets injured, Nick Foles comes in. They put up a statue of him, and he ends up going on to win the Super Bowl. And then, they move off Nick Foles, and then they bring in a second round pick in Jalen Hurts. And it's like they kind of just kept treating Carson Wentz really bad. And, like, in terms of where your mentals are, I don't think he really cared for Philadelphia. And you can say that's right or wrong, but I don't think we saw a fully committed Carson Wentz last year. And I really look forward to seeing him for the Colts. I think it definitely bumps them up and wherever you think they could have been. And as of right now, they have the 28th ranked, schedule going into the season. And you start to look at potentially like T.Y. Hilton, Allen Robinson, Marvin Jones, Juju, Galladay, some of the receivers that could be out there for him. Michael Pittman's still there. Does he try and get Zach Ertz to follow him from Philadelphia? Because it's looking like he might not be there. That's all speculation. But in terms of Carson Wentz, we don't know if we're going to get the 2020 or 2017 or somewhere in between. But if there was a situation that was perfect for Carson Wentz to rebound from what he had last year, he's
He's in
there.
it. He's in it.
There was no better situation, and you can't help but hope we get to see the Carson Wentz of 2017 because
Yeah.
when he was playing like that, I mean, he was top 6, 7 quarterback in the league, and I'd rather see that than another Robert Griffin III.
Yeah, I think just sticking to the Colts here. They just pulled a Rams. They just pulled an LA Rams where they're so confident in their roster, they were missing one piece. And a lot of times, if you look back at history, there's been times where teams are so talented and they're just missing the QB. And it's like the hardest spot to replace. The first team that comes to mind that, for the longest time, I'm like, wow, this team is a quarterback away. It was the Minnesota Vikings in the late 2000s where they just needed one guy, and they ended up getting Brett Favre at the tail end. He had an MVP caliber season, just didn't get him to the Super Bowl, but was there, More recently, just literally last year, the Tampa Bay Bucks, quarterback away. They go out and grab Tom Brady. The Rams, they felt so confident with their roster. If we could just get rid of Jared Goff and bring in another guy, we can compete for a Super Bowl. They want to go and get Stafford. The Colts not only went out and got Carson Wentz, who they believe can get them to a Super Bowl, and I believe that as well. They have the cap space to surround him with the pieces to win. It's extremely scary. Because as you alluded to, They don't need to spend on the offensive line. They have one. They don't need to spend on a running back. They have like 3.
Yeah.
They don't need to spend on the defensive line. They actually DeForest Buckner's there for the next couple of years. They have a solid linebacker, Darius Leonard. They have a skill player in each spot of that
Julian
defense.
Blackman just got drafted last year. He was phenomenal. Xavier Rhodes.
Xavier Rhodes joined the team for a discount.
And in
This
the
team
draft,
will
they can
go
take
out,
best available.
and you're not going to like this. It is what it is, but they're probably going to go out and steal Juju Smith, or they're going to go out and grab Godwin, or they're going to bring in a receiver from the market. Maybe Allen Robinson. I think Allen Robinson would be money.
I also think, keep going. Yes, Allen Robinson.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
They're going to go out. They're going to surround him with a piece. You watch, and Carson Wentz is going to be good. He'll be good.
And
I'm
I
not
think
going to say he's going to be elite or great. He'll be good. He'll be worth a first and a third round pick.
Today, everybody, even if they don't like Carson Wentz, thinks the Colts are better with him than Phillip Rivers.
100%.
At the worst, they're the same team they were last year. I think two things I thought of, which, I mean, one's more speculation. They're both speculation, but everyone talks about maybe Garoppolo returning to the Patriots. I do think that Jacob Eason, the guy they drafted, is their project who they want to be the backup. But I think Jacoby Brissett's not going to be a Colt then. I feel like you have to move Jacoby Brissett. I think he can start in this league. I think the Patriots are a team that may pursue that. I'm not saying for sure. But I also thought of a team, Odell Beckham Jr. I look at what he did for the Giants, and they play on turf. And since he's been at the Browns, some of his best games that I can remember when he played against the Jets and his return to New York, and when he played against the Cowboys and had that blowout game this year, I think Odell Beckham Jr. plays better on turf and maybe even in domes. And I think the Colts is a perfect situation that maybe they go out and get him, a star wide receiver, maybe the best receiver Carson Wentz has ever had in Odell Beckham Jr. They don't really have too many divas or superstars on the team that, demand a lot of attention. I think it would be fun for the Colts to go get Odell Beckham Jr. too if he leaves Cleveland, but that's nor here nor there. But just a little nugget in your guys' mind, just food for thought.
Yeah, I mean that wraps up my thought process on the trade. I think the Colts win it for sure. I don't think there's that way they can lose the trade unless Carson Wentz is throwing 20 to 25 picks this year. If that's the case and he's just literally a turnover machine and he's out of this league, then they lose the trade. But guess what? A first round pick. You gave up one first round, because I'm assuming it's gonna be first. You gave up one first round pick and a third. That's a slap on the wrist. If Carson plays one season, you didn't lose anything. Seriously, you didn't. Yeah. I mean, that's it. If his career ended in week 2, you're like, all right,
you're talking about a franchise quarterback. That third round pick doesn't exist. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It doesn't. It is complete wash at this point. And I just can't believe how little the Colts gave up and what the Eagles were able to give up in order to absorb the largest, and I'm not joking, ladies and gentlemen, the largest cap hit in NFL history for any single player. It's $38 million they're not going to be able to use. In breaking news this morning, the 2020 cap was at 198. It was projected to go down to 175 this year. It is now almost set and locked. It will be official in about a couple of days at 180. So it is going to take a drop. And you're going to take the largest cap hit in the first year that it's dropped in well over 10 years. It's just stupid to me. You should have gotten a haul.
And when we're looking at the Colts, I understand that, we're going to be keeping a close eye on them, the new toy, Carson Wentz. And there may be a lot of quarterbacks, but it says that they have the 28th easiest schedule. The Jaguars are now going to have Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence. That's 2 games that are going to be different. And it's the AFC East and the NFC West, which a lot of people think the West is the best division. Their records aren't super high because they're beating the crap out of each other all year for the most part. And the AFC East has some teams on the rise with the Bills, Dolphins, the Jets with all their cap space. Who knows what they'll do? Never can count out the Patriots and Bills. So let's just take our time with Carson Wentz and the Colts. Give them a month to figure it out, but there will be off season. There will be training camp, and I expect Carson Wentz to be a home run. I'm very excited to see what the Colts can do.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep it moving here. We'll get right into what we assumed was going to be our NBA pod today. Let's start with the mailbag question coming in from two separate people. We'll just go ahead and tag them both. So it's Garrett and Tyler. The main question is what's going on with Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin. Both are being reportedly sat by their teams, the Cavaliers and the Pistons, and they're trying to look for trade partners.
Mm-hmm.
So they want us to predict what those trades will look like. Well, here's this. Andre Drummond is due $28 million this year. That I'm guessing 14 of it's probably already been paid out. It's about halfway through the year. Okay. He will be due the other $14 million to the team that picks him up. Next year, he will be an unrestricted free agent after this season. Okay. Blake Griffin, on the other hand, this year he was due $37 million. It's about halfway paid out, which looks right around 18-ish million. Okay. He will be due the other 18. Next season, he will be due $39 million in the final year of his contract. So, if you don't mind, I'll start with this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Blake Griffin's not going to be traded. I said this a couple weeks ago, or a couple days ago, I feel like, when somebody had reached out to me and we were talking. I think it was Chuck. I think Chuck and Jamie, was a couple of us talking on Real Talk, and I said Blake Griffin won't be traded. Nobody's going to take on that contract for the low production that you'll get back in return. And then I'm not joking, like a day later, he was put on the trade block. It's like, first, I mean, regardless of whether he's on the block or not, nobody's taking that on. Tell me a single team in the league. Let's take contract out of it. Okay, let's pretend he has a blank slate. Tell me a team in the league that would trade for, okay, a player that's got numerous injuries, and at this point is probably good for 15 and maybe 5 a night. There's a few teams. But now, with everything I just told you, you have to pay that dude $39 million next year. There ain't a single person that's going to go out and pay $39 million for 14 and 5. You're just not. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, when it comes to Blake Griffin, I thought more and more he's either not going to be traded or it would be to a team that I don't think is a contender either. Maybe they're just looking to change up their lineup. In terms of Blake Griffin, I mean, he's just an athletic dunker. He was just a posterizer. I mean, since Chris Paul left, has anyone talked about Blake Griffin, about him being good at basketball or changing the not saying he's bad, but like Blake Griffin is not what he was made out to be with the Clippers, I feel. And Chris Paul makes everyone better. Chris Paul kind of earned him this contract that they're kind of stuck with now. So he's a Piston, correct?
He is, and as soon as he was traded to the Pistons from LA, he signed the contract in LA, and they traded him less than a year later. He hadn't even been there a full year when he signed the contract, and it was a huge contract to Detroit. His first year with Detroit was fantastic, and I believe they were the 8th seed, but he wasn't able to start a playoff game because of a knee injury. So, or maybe I think we were the 8th seed. Yeah, I think
he's not worth the money. He's just not, and
he's not.
With COVID and no fans in the stands, really, I would say maybe they're trying to get Blake Griffin in there to sell tickets, come watch Blake Griffin play. But it's like, that's not even a thing anymore. He's just such a shell of what he was.
Yeah.
Like, you used to turn it on SportsCenter and seeing like a Blake Griffin dunk or two every night. And now it's kind of like he never really developed a jumper. There's really nothing else to his game. And with, like you said, the numerous injuries, I just don't think he's the player that he was. And it's a shame, but.
You just said something. You said you turn on SportsCenter and you watch a Blake Griffin dunk. I heard a stat today. The last time Blake Griffin dunked in a game, you ready?
Oh, no.
2019.
Jesus. Yeah, see, and that's what I'm saying. Like, he used to just be, like, for LA and even, like you said, the early Pistons, it was like he was just yam, and then...
He can't get to the rim. He's taking uncontested three-point jumpers and not making them. He's not going to be traded, in my opinion. And unless you have a destination you think fits, go ahead and spew it. Otherwise, we'll move on to Drummond.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Because I believe Andre Drummond is a tradable asset right now, and there's teams that could afford him. I don't know Again, there's 14 million due. I don't know what all would need to happen, but
Barring details, where does he fit basically? Where do you think would be a great spot?
home run, Brooklyn.
They
Home
are
run.
they don't have the money though. I mean, I know we
But
just said bearing all the details. Yes, they need a center. I mean, that's what they need. The Brooklyn Nets, which you're alluding to, they're first in points per game and fourth in assists per game, but they're 18th in rebounding and 28th in defense. Andre Drummond
he
is the
takes your
solution to their
defense like
problem.
that.
He's the solution to their
Yeah.
problem.
Yes.
I just when you get into the details about money and what they have, like there's not really much they can get rid of. They can only
I
really
know
pick.
it.
But yes, fantasizing. I mean, sure, just throw the Eastern All Stars to Brooklyn. Like,
Well, and I hate to be that like, oh, everybody, Brooklyn could use anybody, but truly the best fit for him is Brooklyn. Period. However, maybe that's Kyrie, and then the money works. Maybe that's Kyrie back to Cleveland for Drummond. I don't know.
I that's interesting and that's fun, but I think when you talk about potentially trading a guard, especially point guard, when they have Sexton and Garland, I think that's kind of their core future they're trying to build upon. I mean,
Well, you'd
I think
maybe
they
try
might
to
take
steal Garland.
right, but I'm just saying they might take a shooting guard potentially, but I think they would be looking for maybe another big man. Sure, he might not be as good, but maybe they're trying to free up money. I don't know what Cleveland's plan is, but they don't want Drummond, so maybe they just don't want to win. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, Cleveland's got like 4 centers right now, to be fair,
Yeah,
and they have
they have
Kevin
Jarrett
Love
Allen.
injured. Yeah,
Yeah.
they got tons of pieces.
I, th-
Go ahead.
I think a perfect spot and something that would solve their problems because right now I think they could be better than what they are. I think the Boston Celtics could really use Andre Drummond. I have it here. Andre Drummond averages 17 and a half points, 13 and a half rebounds. The Celtics are 14 and 14, and they're 21st in rebounds, 22nd in points. So they need, and they're 28th in assists. So they kind of need a big man because they're not getting any second chance opportunities. They're not scoring as much as you'd think, but the team runs through Brown and Tatum.
Yeah,
I think if you use Daniel Tice, either one of the guards, Kemba Walker or Marcus Smart, and potentially draft picks, and you add Drummond to this team because Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum should be handling the ball up anyway. I have it here that the Boston Celtics they're 14 and 14, they're 500. They were on a 5-game win streak early in the year. Kemba came back. They lost 5 of their next 7 games. I feel like this team, you know, with Jaylen Brown and Tatum, they don't need a star point guard. I didn't really work with Kyrie, and I don't think it's really working with Kemba.
they
I
were
think what
better with Terry Rozier, who wasn't
right,
demanding a bunch of shots.
exactly if they could have, sure, the title's point guard, but just a shooter,
Yeah.
or a guy who can hit key shots. You add Andre Drummond, a guy who's he averages 4 offensive boards a game.
Mm.
I think if you have a big three of Brown, Tatum, and Drummond on the floor, I think the Celtics could totally revamp, and they're already 6th in defense in the league in terms of points per game is allowed. I think Andre Drummond definitely inserts you into that top 5 category, and the Celtics could really make that push because I feel like Celtics fans are tired of making it to the Final Four in the East and then just being outmatched. And when you look at some of the teams, you know, a center is what could be what beats Brooklyn, or you have to deal with Embiid, or a team like the Miami Bucks or Milwaukee Bucks. Jeez, oh
Mm.
Pete, who have Giannis, or Miami, who have Adebayo. There's a lot of big guys in the East, and Boston really has no rim protection. I mean, Tristan Thompson's cool, but I feel like he'd be a nice too. And right now he's their starter. I feel like Andre Drummond's a home run for the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I like that fit too. Another one that comes to mind, and they could really, really use him and potentially start seeing their success that they've had in the past couple of years. The Toronto Raptors. So they had Jonas Valanciunas or whatever his name was, right?
Yeah.
And he was on their squad for a while. They traded him for Marc Gasol. They won a title with Gasol. Gasol went to the Lakers, and they haven't replaced him. They could really use Andre Drummond. I
They're
think that
also
would be a
dead
huge
last.
fit.
30th in rebounds per game
The
in the
Raptors
NBA.
are
Raptors are dead last. They're 30th. They're kind of middle of the
instantly
pack
fixes
everywhere else.
it.
Yep.
Instantly fixes them.
Andre Drummond, I believe, leads the NBA
He does not.
in
Clint Capilla does, but
he's
Andre
top five.
Drummond over the last 5 years
Yeah.
has
It's
more rebounds than the next two combined might not be close to it. I mean, he's by far the best rebounder of our era these last 5, 6, 7 years.
they're the 7th seed in the East while being dead last in rebounds in the NBA. That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of teams that could benefit from having a stud rebounder, but we're just kind of trying to see where he fits in. Neither of us listed a West team. Is there a West team that you think would obviously benefit? I mean, I would love to say Portland, but Portland has Jurkic or whatever his name, Jurkic.
Yeah.
I mean,
just looking through, I mean, there's not really a ton of teams, but I will say one, and I know everyone knows I'm kind of rooting for these guys, but the Dallas Mavericks, because although Kristaps is big, he's
not a rebounder.
They have Willie Cauley-Stein, and then just kind of guys. Like, I feel like the roster of the Mavericks is weak, and I was kind of blind to that with my infatuation with Luka picking them 6th. But looking at this team, and I've been watching them NBA League Pass. I haven't missed really much Mavericks games, and they're missing that option of a free bucket down low or that physical guy. They're actually 28th in the league in rebounds and 24th in opponents' points per game. Andre Drummond is a massive help, and if the Mavericks are willing to give up the resources, I really think it could kind of free up an opportunity to let Kristaps and Drummond be on the floor at the same time and let Kristaps play the mid-range and actually kind of be a massive stretch 4. I mean, he's 7'3".
Yeah, no,
but
yeah.
he really plays like a stretch player. He's more of a ball handler shooter. So I really think that would cause him problems, and the Mavericks would be really big because Luka point is 6'7". So that team turns really big, and it's an absolute need. They're, like I said, 28th, and the Raptors 30th. All the teams we mentioned, Brooklyn, Boston, Dallas, and Toronto, I think are all fits. And if you're those teams, I don't know why you wouldn't be exhausting resources to try and acquire a guy like Andre Drummond. He's a 2-time All-Star, board machine, and like I said, he's averaging just shy of 20 points on a team that's 10-9.
Yeah, he's got the most 2020 games since Shaq, and to my knowledge, he's still closing in on Shaq's record. In the modern era, obviously, Wilt Chamberlain has the most of those, but I mean, Andre Drummond has been. I mean, I'm a Piston fan. I watched a lot of Drummond games. I mean, he's good for 15 boards a night, and that's crazy to even say, but he truly is good for 15 boards a night if he's playing in a regular rotation. This year, by far his worst rebounding year in a while. I think, would you say he's averaging 13.5?
13.5.
This is one of his worst seasons because of he's just not getting played. They have too many centers. They're the worst team in the league as far as point differential. They lose games by at least 10 points.
If he went to a Boston, Mavericks, Toronto, I think it could shoot up to 16. I mean, again, out of those 13.5, 4 of them are offensive rebounds. Those are second chance points that I think Boston Mavericks, with the kind of shooters and playmakers they have, could really reap the benefits of having an Andre Drummond. But I do think if he leaves Cleveland, there's 29 other teams in the NBA. All of them have room for an Andre Drummond.
Absolutely.
All of them.
Yeah. I mean, this is crazy to say. I would love if they could somehow work out a thing to get Drummond back in Detroit for Blake Griffin. I mean, that sounds crazy, but Detroit's starting to see some young promise in some of their players. Jeremiah Grant's been tremendous, and Drummond back in Detroit with some actual scores around him. Who knows? I don't know. Just throwing it out there. Let's go ahead and move on to our power rankings. Obviously, we don't get as crazy into this as we do our NFL power rankings, but we'll give our top 5 from each side. Let's go ahead and start in the East, where it's kind of crazy over there.
Yeah, I think the top 3, in whatever order you have them, I think most people that follow or pay attention to basketball at all will have the 76ers, Nets, and Bucks as your top 3 in the East. I mean, someone may have something else.
Interesting.
And willing to hear the arguments. I'm going to put them in that order, though. Philadelphia, the Nets, the Bucks. The Nets, I still need to see more time, and with them being so close to last in the league in defense, and they're doing a lot of their winning with two of their big three. Kevin Durant's missed some time. Kyrie missed some time. But goodness me, James Harden is playing out of his mind. He's leading the league in assists per game. He's playing phenomenal. And the Milwaukee Bucks at third. However, I have Boston at four simply because I trust them more than the Pacers, even though the Pacers have a little bit better of a record. Boston, I think, rounds out the top four. Like I said, they're just missing that extra push on the offensive glass, and they need a third option. Really, Kemba's not as consistent as you'd like. And I guess the fifth team, I really like the New York Knicks, and it's kind of crazy right now. They're sixth, but I like the New York Knicks because they're first in defense in the league. They're number one in opponents' points per game. So their defense is phenomenal, and they're third in rebounding. So they're a very tough team, and they're a big team. The problem is they're 30th in points and 29th in assists. And I don't have an exact player, and I don't know where it would come from. But if the Knicks could acquire a get a bucket guy, just a guy who can come in and average somewhere between 20 and 25 points per game, I think you could see the Knicks cause some real problems in the playoffs with how they play defense. Um, the Hornets are playing well right now. The Raptors are up there, and the Pacers are playing really good. But I just think the Knicks are a more fun story. So I'm going to have the Knicks at five just because I kind of wanted a minute to talk about them.
Yeah, their defense is staggeringly good. It's the best in the league by 2 points per game. Second would be the Lakers, who everybody knows is a good defensive team. Okay, and they're right there with the Jazz and the Suns. But the only problem with the Knicks is they don't score.
Yeah, they don't have that guy.
They average 103 points per game, and they give up 103 points per game. They're in a dead nut tie every night.
I just think they're a trade for a playmaker. Just one trade away from being a team that can go over the top. And if the trade deadline hits and they don't acquire someone, look for them to maybe fade out of my power rankings. But I've never seen a team, so dominant at one end and just bad at the other end. But again, I just think if they can acquire that guy, I just think they can be really good.
So real quick, run yours down one more time.
Philly, Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Boston, Knicks.
Okay, we're close. For me, it's the Nets number one, only because of what they made their trade midseason. They're still figuring it out, but right now they're winners of 4 in a row, 6-4 in their last 10 games, which is pretty similar to everybody in the East. All your top teams are right around 500. They're 6-4, they're 4-6, or they're 5-5 in these last 10. They're all beating each other up. 2 for me. It's one of the best home teams in the league, if not the best home team. They're 12-2 at home. It's the Sixers. I believe they're the best home team in the league, though. They are. Yeah, they are. Which they were the best home team in the league last year as well. Yeah, I mean, they're night and day. Shockingly, everybody before the season and all of last season said Simmons and Embiid can't play together, but that's actually not true at all. They're very good when both are on the court.
Needed a coach.
We'll
get to Sorry, go ahead.
You're good. For me, 3 and 4 was actually a toss-up. I know you said it was easy. I actually gave the edge to the Celtics, and only because they got Kemba back. He's averaging 21 a game, but they've lost those games. They need to figure some things out. I like them going forward more than I like the Bucks, who, by the way, the Bucks lost 4. They're coming off 4 in a row. They've lost 4 in a row. They're 5-5 in their last 10. I mean, they're 16-12 on the year, but it's like, man, if they didn't score 120 a game, they would lose a lot of games. I mean,
there's a big thing about the Bucks, which I like you putting them at 4, because since Drew Holiday's been out with COVID, the team's crumbling. And in a very interesting stat, which I think is a huge knock on Giannis, is the Bucks are the worst team in the league this year. I heard I'd have to double check this, and someone listening can fact check me if they want. I believe they're 0-9 when trailing going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
They can't come back and win. Yeah. And I heard an interesting take, and I agree. I think the problem is there's solutions on their team already. the coaching staff needs to give the keys to Chris Middleton. I think he's your get a bucket guy late in the game. If you need a score, I think Chris Middleton needs to run it. And they're trying to force the issue with Giannis, but he's just not that guy. At least not yet. He can't shoot. But go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I just think that, it's just not there. And truly, I proposed a trade a minute ago, Andre Drummond to the Raptors. The Raptors are my fifth team. They're starting to come alive. They're starting to win games. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They are trending up. They need a center, especially if they want to compete with, you ready? Giannis and Embiid. You need a center. Go out and get Drummond however you can, acquire him, and you can shoot up this list. I mean, I don't know. That's my top five. Going to the West, I guess I'll start. For me, this is a runaway. It's the best team in the league. It's the Jazz. They're winners of 9 in a row. They're 9-1 in their last 10. Number 2, though, Blazers, baby, winners of 6 in a row, 8-2 in their last 10. Number 3, Lakers, 3-0 in overtime games this year. They all came 3 in a row, and they're 8-2 in their last 10. 4, I have the Suns over the Clippers. I have the Suns. They're 8-2 in their last 10. The West is just beating up the lower feeding teams and the East teams. And then number 5, not that this is bad. They're currently, I believe, 3rd in the West, but I have them 5th. They're 6-4. It's the Clippers.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. The Jazz are number 1. I don't
Yeah.
know if anybody can have any arguments. Their 9-game win streak, they're virtually tied with the 76ers at home, 13-2, but they just don't lose. They're playing fantastic basketball. And when you kind of do a little bit bigger of a dive across the board, 4th in points, 1st in rebounds, 3rd in defense. They have no weaknesses to their game right now. Number 2, I'm going to keep it the Lakers. They still got the best player in the NBA. They're still winning games. They're 22-7. Lakers at 2, but I do agree. I do have Portland kind of jumping up the list here. Dame and CJ are playing really well. Damian Lillard. It seems like when one takes the night off, the other one balls out. Enes Kanter's played really well for center for them. They've got some nice pieces. Robert Covington's a really nice role piece who's starting to shoot better at the 3 ball. Number 4, though, I'm going to keep the Clippers in there. They're still one of 4 teams, or one of 3 teams, in single-digit losses. Kawhi, Paul George, they've still got the star power there. They're not as, I want to say they're not as dominant, but they're winning 70% of their games. Number 5, though, it was hard to pick one, but I will go with the Suns. Chris Paul, where he goes, they're doing better. Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton. And honestly, I couldn't name one other guy on their team, but those 3 are getting the job done. They're playing really well. And just one more little comment back on the East. I think it's shocking how with COVID going on and no fans, it's weird how much better the top teams are doing at home. Philly, the Nets, and Bucks. Home records 12-2, 11-5, 9-3. Road records 7-8, 7-7, 7-9. So I think that's just kind of crazy how even during a COVID year with no fans, it's really still taking its toll to go on the road. But that's not the case for the West teams. 11-3, 13-3, 11-4, 10-5, all on the road. The West is so much better than the East, and it's kind of crazy. I mean, Tyler, if you're listening, I know we talked about this at poker the other night. The Nets and Warriors played. They virtually had the same record. The Warriors were 8th at the time, and the Nets were 3rd. So you look at kind of the record differences, and the West is way tougher. For those of you who still forgot or were never informed, or 10 teams make the playoffs theoretically. There's a play-in game for 10-9 versus 8-7. So we're going to get a lot of good teams from the West. Currently, Dallas and the Kings are floating on that edge, but NBA is a lot of fun right now. Super glad I bought the NBA League Pass. I've been watching basketball every night before I go to bed, and it's really entertaining. And there's so many storylines and so many good teams, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, shockingly, the Spurs, who we haven't talked about on this pod ever, I believe, are 9-3 on the road. They're 16-11. That would be good for third place total in the East. They'd be the 3rd seed. They'd be better than the Bucks.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So,
they're the 6th seed.
Yeah, and nobody's talking about them. They don't get any love ever. So that's pretty crazy to even think about. and the Mavericks. Obviously, you had higher hopes. I even thought they'd be better. They're basically a 500 team, just underneath 500. They've had their issues. But we're going to talk about Luka here. We had a discussion that broke out at the poker table the other night. Watching the Mavericks and the Warriors game, which they beat the Warriors, correct?
When we were watching, it was the Nets versus the Warriors. The Mavs was the game we were joking about because it was NBA replay.
Who did they beat that night, though? They had beat somebody.
I don't know who they were playing.
Gosh.
Did win,
but
though.
Luka was incredible in that game. Let's pull it up here.
I got some up right now.
Basically, the gist of the conversation was I'm just not sold that Luka makes this team that much better. And when I say that, I want to be very clear and distinct with how I say it. Just because you have the stats doesn't mean that that translates to wins. And wins as in being competitive and eventually getting yourself to an NBA title. And I know how you feel about Luka, and I guess I'll come out with an opening statement here. Before we even start this conversation, I want to preface it with this. Today is February 18th, 2021. Luka's birthday is February 28th. So in 10 days, he's going to turn 22 years old. So with everything that's being said, he's 21 right now, going to be turning 22. And I mean, it's just there's a long career ahead of him. He could play for 10 years and still not hit his prime. So let's just let's say that first.
Yeah.
Luka's averaging 29 points per game, 8.6 rebounds, 9.4 assists, and 4.2 turnovers. And what I was trying to say to you the other day about my issue with Luka is, in my opinion, I was basically saying he's not a top 5 player in this league. And right now, he's flirting falling out of my top 10. And there's a lot of players I would take ahead of him. But my biggest concern with him is he's Russell Westbrook. He's Russell Westbrook without the intensity that Russell plays with. Because truly, I don't see the same intensity out of Luka. I see a kid that's very good at playing basketball. He can score. He can shoot. I mean, he's coming on to shooting, but he can shoot. He can rebound the ball. He can dish the ball. And he does things with the ball that are very, like, point guardish, even though he's not even like a true point guard. I mean, he's really like a big point guard, kind of like LeBron in a way. Not that I'm comparing him to LeBron James.
Right, I get it.
But he's Westbrook. And I'll let you rebuttal before we even start arguing anymore. That's my opening statement. He's Russell Westbrook.
I guess that's tough for me because Luka's clearly my most favorite player in the league.
He could be your favorite. I'm not.
Well, no. I get that. Yeah. What I'm saying is, like, my least favorite is Russell Westbrook. Like, I can't stand Russell Westbrook, but that's neither here nor there. I guess when you're talking about statistics, he's currently 5th in the league in points per game. He's currently 3rd in assists, 18th overall, and 2nd among guards in rebounds per game. Statistically, he's all there. This Mavericks team is much, much worse without Luka. I know you would agree with that the team's not as good with Luka. That's obvious. But when you say he's not making his teammates better, that's just kind of crazy. I guess the only way I could describe it is you would have to list off players, maybe your top 10 per se. And I would have to tell you realistically if I'm starting a team, if I would take Luka over that player. And we didn't touch on a ton at poker. It was just briefly stated because it kind of ended at this point. We said most people in the room said he's not top 5, but most everybody kind of nodded right away when we said top 10. But what the thing was is I kind of came out with the comment that I would take Luka over Giannis. And I stand by that. And maybe some of you guys say, how is that? But I just feel like when I watch the Milwaukee Bucks, who have a really good roster and good team, and Giannis is the head of that team, there's ways that they take Giannis out of the game. And in playoffs, he doesn't matter. And I look at this Mavericks team whose roster a lot of people would say is really underwhelming. And Luka, without Kristaps, was able to take 2 games from the Clippers. I mean, virtually by himself. Kristaps got thrown out of one of the games. and then he missed a game with injury. It was the game where Luka hit that step back jumper at the end of the fourth quarter to beat the Clippers. And I just think Luka is so good. He has all the intangibles offensively, and I'm not going to sit here and say he's an elite defender. There is much to be desired from Luka defensively. But to be fair, he's asked to do almost everything offensively when he's on the floor. Maybe that's where the stats come from. But I know there's a handful of guys off the top of my head: Kawhi Leonard, Jokic, LeBron, Curry. I would take those guys before Luka. But I really have a hard time, especially players 25 and under, who I think are better than Luka Doncic. I think he's a top 5 player in the league. And if he's not top 5, I find it hard to fathom he would fall outside the top 7. So, I mean, that's kind of where I sit on him. I think he's going to win. If the over under was at 1.5 MVPs, I'd take the over for Luka. I think he's going to win multiple MVPs. And I don't see why he couldn't be able to win a ring. I think out of the players that he's compared to for the next generation, you look at Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker. Did I say Jason Tatum already?
Yeah.
Ben Simmons. You take some of these young guys. I know I'm missing some, but I just think Luka's the best out of those guys. Zion. I would just take Luka over any of those guys. And this Mavericks team is 13 and 15. I know that he's not carrying this team to a winning record or definitive playoffs right now. Again, he's only 21. But like without Luka, you can insert any other guy. I think this team doesn't have even 10 wins. I think everything the Mavericks do is through him, and even Kristaps has missed games throughout this season. He wasn't there at the beginning of the season. I think it's helped having him back, but I don't know. I can't say enough good things about Luka, and I would argue on paper I probably have him at about 5 or 6, but in terms of guards, he's got to be top 3 for me personally.
It's crazy that this conversation's even happening because and some people would probably say I'm stupid for even bringing this up because he's coming off. This was last Friday night. 46 points, 12 assists, 8 boards, and he shot it at 56% from the field that night. 4 personal fouls, 3 turnovers. He followed it up on Sunday. He won that game, by the way. He followed it up on Sunday, scoring 44 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, and he shot it 70% from the field that night.
His career field goal percentage is 45.
Yeah, so he had 5 turnovers and 4 personal fouls. I guess, and here's where I'm at. Like, he does an awful lot of losing. Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of losing. And he's a defensive liability completely, which has to be factored in when we're talking about a player. In the month of February alone, this month is 18 days deep. He's 33 points, 9 and 7.5. I mean, 9.5 and 7.5. It's incredible. He's almost shooting it at 50% from the field. He averages 5 turnovers a game this month. He does turn it over a ton, just like Russ does. I mean, the top 5 in turnovers in the league. Got it right here. Number 1, Russell Westbrook, 4.9. Number 2, Harden, 4.3. Number 3, Trae Young, 4.3. Number 4, Luka, 4.2. I mean, they're right there, and then Zach LaVine at 3.9.
I just think that, and maybe this is me being weird, but Harden, Trae Young, and Luka, it almost feels like they have to be the distributor for that team. The other guys are ISO scorers or rebounders. They have to be that guy, so the turnovers are going to come.
Yeah, they will come in, right. Especially when you have the production numbers I just read off.
Right. But that's where I don't follow it with Russell Westbrook. I feel like he has other guys who can play that role. He just kind of does it himself. And again, you look at Young, Doncic, and Harden, and they score efficiently. Russell Westbrook puts up, sometimes 20 shots a game and makes 8. And it kind of just seems like that's why he loses. I feel like Russell Westbrook is oftentimes his aggression for stats is the reason his team loses. When I watch Maverick games, I don't want to go as far as to say Luka's a liability. He's not a good defender. I don't want to go as far as to say liability. But when I watch Mavericks games, I don't ever think, man, if Luka could have got that stop in the middle of the third quarter. Like, there was never anything really like that. A lot of times Luka's guarding spot up shooters or guys who are kind of running along the arc. He's not really on the main ball handlers, just getting
Yeah.
beat. And his rebound numbers, I think, help what he can do defensively. Again, he's 6'7". He should be able to get boards. I just think that Russell, like Trae Young, and Harden are more guys that Luke is in the category with. Efficient scorers that just they try to do too much at times, turn the ball over. Trae Young's another young guy, same draft. Russell Westbrook, I think it's kind of like the same old story. He kind of, he forces the issue, and he's got to be one of the most inefficient MVPs. Like, I know he gets the triple doubles, but I wonder what his career field goal percentage is. Things like that. I don't know.
I,
Like,
I guess when I really start to dive into them, now mind you, I should say in their last 5 games they're 4-1, so they're definitely trending up. And in their last 7, they're 5-2, definitely trending up. But there was a stretch here in January where it was not good.
They were losing.
Matter of fact, the month of January he was, I don't want to say bad because he wasn't. 28 points, 10-10. He averaged a triple-double in the month of January at 47% from the field, 4 turnovers, only 1.2 personal fouls, so down significantly.
It's because this is his fault, but everyone knows Luka came into this year overweight. He was out of shape. He had to play himself into shape. So it was like, there's like 2 or 3 games in December for some teams. And then the month of January is basically the opening month. He literally played himself into shape. In the last probably week or two, like into February, he's looked like the Luka we thought he'd be. But even I noticed the first couple games, I was like, he kind of looks like he's maybe 10 to 15 pounds, a little bit over what he should have been.
You said this the season started in December. There was 4 games, 23 points, 6 boards. Or I'm sorry, 6 assists and 5.8 boards.
But if you
definitely
look at
not
his
Luka numbers,
right, his points went up 8 to 10 into January. His assists went up about 5. His rebounds went up 3 or 4.
And he was 2 of 21 from 3-pointers.
Yeah, his 3-point shot
was closed that. He's closed that dramatically.
Yeah, he's
gotten better. He's gotten better. But I'm looking at it and I just wonder.
It's hard.
Maybe I think he's doing too much. Maybe I think he's just doing too much. This is not the recipe to win. I mean, it's hard to argue, but there was a game here. Hang on here. January 20th against the Pacers, who, by the way, are a playoff team, okay, in the East. They're the 4th seed. 13 points, 12 assists, 12 rebounds. They won the game by 12 points. And it was close in the fourth quarter. He didn't have to do that much. But there's plenty of games where he's dropping. I mean, listen to this one here. 30 points, 6 assists, 4 boards. They lose. I mean, that sounds like a great game, but that's maybe scoring at that clip just isn't. I don't know. Maybe get more guys involved. Something is off here.
I guess
it's the Kobe Bryant effect.
I guess there's just a couple of things. The get the more guys involved. He's 3rd in the league in assists per game.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, I think what hurts Luka is we see a 10th place 13 and 15 out of the Mavericks. I think that's what hurts. It's the team's win-loss. But if you look at 13 and 15, I mean, I just think this team has such a poor roster. And people who don't watch basketball be like, I know Kristaps is there. But, like, a lot of people wouldn't even know. Like, they got Finney-Smith starting. They've got guys who just, like, Tim Hardaway Jr. is coming off the bench. I wish he could score the way he did for the Knicks sometimes. And he can catch fire. Trey Burke's their relief guy. They got Jalen Brunson playing. It's like Willie Cauley-Stein is their backup center. I mean, he's really not a great player in the NBA. I just think this roster is so weak. And it's like, sure, they win games, lose some games. I mean, that's just the NBA. I mean, different games, you catch different teams. But I've seen the Mavericks have played how many games? 28. I'd say I've seen 21 of the Mavericks games I've been watching. And maybe my judgment's clouded. But I've never watched it and been like, man, Luka just it was if he would have done something different. Like he scores so efficiently when he gets the ball. It's like he'll be in the paint and make a floater. He's not just jacking up shots, and it's like he's so efficient in getting other guys involved. And he's third in the league in assists per game. And if you could count how many guys miss when he throws it, it's kind of like LeBron gets a double team, kicks it to a guy wide open, masonry convention. It's like just throwing up bricks everywhere. So there's good and bad, and I'm not saying there's not downfalls to his game. And I think we'll put up a post after this pod. Nothing invasive, just thoughts on Luka, anything and everything, just to see
Yeah.
what other people say about him.
Yeah.
I don't like the Russell Westbrook comparison, although I can see how it's made. A stat guy who doesn't win a ton. But I think when you dive deeper, he's a much better player than that. And I'd be
I will say
disgusted.
this. He's shooting it at he's shooting at a clip Russell Westbrook wishes he shot it at.
Right.
I
if
will
you
say
don't
that.
have him in your top 10, that kind of makes me seem like you're just doing it just to like try and light a fire for me. I can totally see not top 5.
Yeah.
And when you get to 6, 7, because you got to incorporate all positions. You've got Embiid, you've got Jokic, you've got Giannis, Kawhi, LeBron, Davis, Tatum, Paul George. I mean, there's plenty of stars in this league. I just if you ever have time to watch a Mavericks game, the dude just play. There's some things like you said he does with the ball where it's like his body control. He does like 3 fakes, gets people off the ground, and he just seems like an average dude too. It's not like he's a high flyer dunking on everybody. He's kind of like watching poetry is the way I say it, because he's so fluid in the way he plays. He's not a guy who's just gonna like fly past you and dunk on you. He does everything so methodically, and I just really enjoy the way he plays. And it's awesome that he's only 21, because I'll be able to watch this guy for the next 12 to 15 years. But
Yeah, I
goodness,
mean, at the numbers that he's putting up, I mean, it's really crazy. It's just I almost wonder if it's sustainable. And I just compare him to other players that maybe have similar situations. You know, Damian Lillard, that dude's dragged his team to the playoff. And I'm not saying the Mavericks are going to miss the playoffs, because they could definitely rebound, but the West is better. And there's dudes that get their team to the playoffs every year. You know, Damian Lillard drags his team to the playoffs, and they have as much to work with, if not less, than the Dallas Mavericks. So it's like, I don't know. I'm trying to give honest critiques.
no, and I don't know if some people are watching this like, man, Jeff's getting after Brad, but we're just spit talking. There's no hostility here, and I mean,
don't hate Luka. I'm just getting your opinion, because I know you're a Luka guy and I know you watch a lot of Luka. But I'm just trying to see what I want you to know what I'm seeing. And am I justified? You know, you've gave plenty of great arguments. And again, I sound crazy because of the numbers that I'm reading off of the screen are literally jaw dropping. Like, you would be happy if you were putting these numbers up in 2K. I mean, truly you would. They don't seem real. I mean, 28, 10, and 10 against Atlanta a couple nights ago. That was his last game before he dropped these 2 nasty 40-pointers.
Last year was his second year in the league, correct? Him and Trae Young, it was their year 2 last year.
Yes.
And he got the Mavericks to a 7th seed with this team. And right now, I know they're the 10th seed, but you said that they've hit their stride the last week. They had a stretch in January.
Definitely, February's been good to them.
Yeah, they could not win a game. I think this team's on the up and up. Like I said, we'll see on the trade deadline. I think, a player like Andre Drummond would be sweet for the Mavericks. But again, they could get a guy who can maybe lock down a guy, a defensive guy, a rebounder, maybe a power forward or something. But I just think this team still has the trade deadline. They're 13 and 15, which is only 5 games away from being all the way up at the 4 seed. So this team's everyone's still got time in the NBA. This team's on the up and up, and excluding his rookie year after they lost, it was the Dirk farewell tour and everything like that. He made the playoffs last year. In the more difficult division, the West is tough, but Damian Lillard, same way. But Damian Lillard did miss the playoffs last year, and Luka didn't. They were in the playoff game, weren't they? Oh, Lakers. They were the 8th seed. See how stupid I am, guys. Brad, check your facts.
You're good. You're good.
But yeah, they lost to the Lakers. LA knocked both of us out. I guess if we're talking about Portland and stuff. But to see Chris
And
Stapps,
Portland just beat the Mavs in their last game, and I'm not saying because they beat them they're better, but I mean Damian Lillard was 34 points, 12 of 26. That's like the numbers that I want to see out of a guy, and it's like it's crazy because Luka was 14 of 20, so he had a way better game. And you're like, well, he has a better team. I don't know. I feel like there's so much production, it's almost counterproductive.
I guess we just feel a little different on that. But I know last year in the playoffs, Chris Stapps, the Mavericks were beating the Clippers, and Chris Stapps got that boo ejection. It was terrible for a second foul or whatever. And the Clippers come back, and everyone wrote him off. And then Luka by himself beat the Clippers in a game. And it was just like, it was that moment when he hit that shot where I was like, everyone was like, oh, the Mavericks might do it because everyone seemed to cheer against the Clippers, who was a Bron fan,
Yeah.
or for him. So everyone was paying attention to that series, first year with Kawhi and Paul George. And for Luka to play as well as he did in that playoff game, I think everyone noticed like he was playing well, and it was like they just started triple teaming him, and no one else could really do much on the team. I think it's a weak roster. I think they could add some pieces, but I will stand by it right now. I think the Mavericks will make the playoffs, at the very least, one of the play-in games, which I guess is 10 through 7th seed. But the Mavs, Luka.
Okay. That's all I got. Just wanted a friendly discussion about Mr. Luka. So, yeah, that's a wrap.
Yeah,
You got anything else?
Nope, just Raptors, Bucks, Heat, Kings, and Nets, Lakers. With some COVID stuff, Spurs have been getting pushed back, and Mavericks, Rockets just got postponed from yesterday for tomorrow. Excuse me. So COVID's definitely impacting the season a little bit, but
Yeah.
watching NBA, I don't think there's any lack of quality. I think there's some good teams, and especially if you're watching the Western Conference.
Let's do some quick picks tonight because obviously we got some really good games. Raptors at Bucks. Who you got?
I like the Bucks to bounce back. I don't think they'll go on a 5-game lose streak.
Yeah, it does seem like to be a lot, but the Raptors, Raptors match up with them. They've matched up with them pretty well even since the Eastern Conference Finals a couple years back. I'll take the Raptors to win again.
I look for Giannis to have an absolute night. I don't think they have an answer for him on that roster.
10 o'clock. This is the big one. Everybody's been wanting to see it. Brooklyn Nets at the Lakers. Kevin Durant is out. Anthony Davis is out. So this is not even the full spoonful. This is really just it's a sample size. Who you taking?
Lakers.
Lakers big. I like LeBron to have. This team's been dreadful defensively. I think LeBron has a massive game tonight, especially being alone. I would love to see him go for that 45 that these other two are dropping. Kyrie's in the house. Go give him the business. I want to see a prime LeBron game tonight.
Yeah, you would say put KD on him and have some fun, but is there anybody who can match up with LeBron? Now, first of all,
KD's out.
I know a lot of people are going to say, well, no one can match up with LeBron.
Yeah.
I know that. But, like, do they have anybody who can match remotely with LeBron? I don't think they do.
They went out and got Amon Shumpert.
I look for LeBron to have a triple-double tonight, and he's going to score over 32. I think he goes for, like, 37, 12, and 11. I think that would be a good stat line for him. But I like the Lakers, especially with no KD.
Yeah. I'm with you there. And you guys, Michigan plays tonight against Rutgers. Ohio State plays against Penn State. As long as both take care of business, we're gonna have a top 5 matchup Saturday or Sunday. Saturday, Sunday.
Sunday.
This weekend, Sunday.
Sunday, I believe it's Sunday.
Yeah, we're gonna have a top 5 matchup regardless, but shaping up to be a real good one. Watch your guys' games, and I'll be watching the Michigan Wolverines, and then probably tuning into the Lakers Nets. But yeah, Brad, it's been real, man.
Yep, NBA's fun. Carson Wentz, wild.
Yeah, we'll be back next week. Talk some more NFL stuff that's coming around and any other sweet NBA headlines. Until then, see you guys later. Go Blue.
Take it easy, but.